What's up, everybody? Welcome to Free Lady. I'm your host, Brittany McWethy, and we're here to talk to Jake Dansie today. You know, so I said your last name right.
I know you got it this time. No worries.
Oh my
What's going
gosh.
on, everybody?
Yeah. Welcome to the show, Jake. We just had a huge event with his company Axiom last Friday. It was the first event I ever got to speak at, and I was talking about in my Instagram stories, and I said Dancie. Oh no, what did I say? I don't know what I said. I said like Daniel was like, that is not how you say his last name. I was like, well, you know what? I'm like that sometimes, so
It's
it's
been
totally
said
fine.
wrong so many times. You're not the
So was
first
my last
person.
name.
It's never going
You
to be
know,
the last. You're good. Yeah,
I know, it's
exactly.
totally fine. It's so welcome to the show, Jake. Tell everybody who
Thanks.
you are and what do you do?
Yeah, well, thanks for having me.
Yeah.
So I own a company called Axiom Coaching and Axiom Entertainment. So we actually put on live public speaking events for people who are trying to grow their personal brands or networks and give them an opportunity to get on stage. We call these arena nights. The purpose behind kind of the name arena night and everything like that is actually to be the man in the arena, so to speak, to be the one that kind of steps into the middle, has to perform, has to do the deed, and everybody kind of is going to throw whatever criticism at them from the seats. But it gives people a really cool opportunity to get over what is, really the number one fear in the United States, which is public speaking. And then it also allows them to also grow personal brands by being able to reach broader audiences as we kind of create some of that content and stuff like that. So it's been exciting to have them, which you did awesome. You and Daniel did fantastic on Friday. It was
Thank
super
you.
fun. We had lots of people crying from your story, and then there was all sorts of people that were crying from Daniel's and were shocked from Daniel's story, so that was cool. We've gotten
Yeah.
a couple of messages on Facebook from people that have watched the live stream after, and they really appreciated both of you guys, so you guys did
Oh,
fantastic.
oh, that's so awesome. That's
Yeah.
so great. Yeah, let's talk about that for a little bit, you guys.
Yeah.
So, this is the second arena event that he's had. He has one scheduled for August, and he
Mhm.
also has one scheduled in December. It's going to be a gala event. It's going to be really exciting because you're going to be donating a lot to Underground Railroad. Let's talk about
Yeah.
that a little bit.
Yeah. We're super excited for that. So it actually ties up really with the idea that we originally had, or that I had for the arena nights. So when I first started kind of thinking about what I wanted to do, um, it kind of just came to me really obviously. Like one of my coaches was saying, build your own stage. And I just literally thought, why not build a stage, build events. There's very few people that I know of that are actually doing like consistent live events. So the first thing that I had was, well, I'd love to do that and put on live events. So we kind of have the Axiom Entertainment portion that's going to be helping other companies put on their own individual live events for whatever they may have going on in their brands. But then I also wanted to provide value for my friends, and that came to me in the form of the arena nights. Was something that we're going to do for free. We're going to continue to do those for free, and it's like I said, it's the opportunity for not only my friends to come out and speak, but anybody who really is trying to grow that to come and have that opportunity to speak and get on stage. And then also anybody who maybe doesn't have the funds to start looking for a coach or find somebody specifically in a space that they might need some help, but also if they don't even know where to start looking, they can kind of come to the arena nights. And we've had personal trainers, we've had podcast hosts, we've had folks, talk on, like yourself, talk about trauma and like PTSD, like with Daniel. We've had, multimillionaires talk about Amazon fulfillment, business to business sales, things like that. So it's been pretty rad already that we've only had two events like that. And we've had so many different areas covered. So it's cool to be able to kind of connect some people that are looking for things like that.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that ties in with, the Underground Railroad a lot, where we really wanted to help as much as we could. Operation Underground Road is something that came into me and my wife's life just through a friend. And we kind of had the opportunity to help a little bit through a volunteer thing, but then we also wanted to continue to do more. And so we just decided that that was going to be the charity that we wanted to benefit through all of our galas and donations each year.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that's something we're excited to have going on for the next, foreseeable future with that annual gala.
I love that because it just reminds me of how amazing, Dan Fleischman is. Like, talk about
Absolutely.
someone with a heart of gold. Like, everything he does like has something to do with charity and giving back. And I love it. And he always says, he's like, I always am afraid of running out of time to help as many people as I
Yep.
can. And I'm just like, those types of people, and that's who we're following under, you know what I mean? I feel like, we're the underdogs right now of following in these footsteps of giving back and speaking up and doing things with charity, which also means doing events for free like you're doing. It's really amazing because you never know what you're going to hear. You
Yeah,
never know what you're going to be walking into. And I also feel like whatever God wants you to hear, you're going to hear it that day.
for sure.
And like, it's also cool that they're live streamed and everything like that. And I just think it's amazing what you're doing. I'm really proud of you. I can't wait to
Appreciate it.
see like more and more. And I'm glad I'm in Utah so I can go to all of them now.
Heck yeah. Now
you
you're
know,
local.
yeah. So I'm super excited. And I just, from the bottom of my heart, I really want to thank you because I've never spoken at an event and I've always wanted to. I've been manifesting this since last year at Lions Den Live, like launched the podcast. I was like, I am going to be on stage somehow, somewhere. And again, even better with Daniel, because that's
Yeah,
my vision for the both of us is to continue to always, speak together or speak individually, but always be on the same stage, helping as many people as I can. And it was really neat to see you guys speak, before me, you and Vic. And as I'm sitting there with my heart racing, my armpits are sweating, I probably something, my back sweating, who knows? Like, it was like, oh my God, I have
a
to get up
thousand
there.
degrees on stage.
A
Yeah,
1,000 degrees, totally. But you look around the room and I was like, I know more than half of these people. And it was just so cool that they came to support us. And that whole time I'm just like, God, just speak through me, just speak through me. And there are things I definitely learned what I don't want to say and what I do want to say, and things like that, or what I forgot to say. But once I got on the stage, it was so weird how natural it was.
sure.
And I didn't know you pushed the time limit up. I thought it was like, oh, okay,
Yeah,
5 more time. Like I thought I had a minute and a half left of the 20 minutes that we're, kind of supposed to talk. And so
right.
like I had no idea. So but it was great to feel that feeling and know that there is confidence there for future things. And I owe it all to you. Like I'm just so thankful. So thank you so much.
Well, and we really appreciate that. And like I said, it means a ton to us for you guys to come out because my experience so far with these has been really interesting. I was talking to Vic about this, and I just said, most of the people that have spoken so far have not like offered to come and speak. We had a couple, at the very first one, but it's been interesting because most of the other folks I've asked, and
Yeah.
and it's not like I've really gotten a whole lot of no's or anything like that, but there has been, there's been a good amount of people so far that I've asked and they either haven't, spoken yet. They still kind of are thinking they want to do one in the future. But it's been kind of funny just because it's almost something like people don't volunteer for it. They don't want to jump into it. So when people
Mhm.
have said yes, I
Mhm.
kind of haven't let them get away because now it's like you have to. But even
Mhm.
the night of, I asked Eric, I said, okay, when are
Oh,
you
I
gonna get there and
know.
talk? And he was like, no, and Heather Clayson, she spoke at our first one and she actually volunteered. One of my original posts when I was looking for folks, she volunteered for it. And when I got talking to her about it, she's like, no, I'm terrified. Like, which was
Mhm.
so cool to me because she carried it all the way through. She actually like didn't back out or anything like that. And that's kind of
Yeah.
the thing about having an actual physical event is there is a physical hard and fast time that
Yes.
you have to be here. So
Yes.
you almost can't back out kind of a
Right.
thing. And it was
Right.
so cool to see her carry it all the way through, even though she was terrified because
Yeah.
almost identical to yourself when you got up there, she was nervous. She got up, but as soon as she started talking about what she knew and people started asking her questions about her specific stuff within her job, things
Right.
just started coming out and she wasn't even, paying attention anymore and it was just fluid. So
Mhm.
it's so
Mhm.
funny to me that we're all experts in the things that we do on a daily basis, but it's a totally completely different thing if I have to share it on stage versus if I
Oh,
have to
yeah.
share it to a customer, or
Right.
a client or whoever that is in person. So
Yeah. It was, I was terrified. I mean, just terrified. But, Vic was kind enough to be like, that you spoke in front of 60 people about
Right.
very intimate things, and I was,
Right.
oh yeah, that's right. And that will probably be the most embarrassing thing I've ever do. So if I can do that, like, he was right, I can do anything. So,
Yeah.
um, I am excited, like, for your future events, of course,
Appreciate it.
but I want to know, who were you before you started all this,
For
and
sure.
how did you get there?
Yeah. That's it's an interesting story. um so I I grew up on a farm. I was always a hard worker and really couldn't decide what I wanted to do. Originally, I wanted to go to medical school, so I did actually start kind of going to school. Um, I served an LDS mission in Mexico, so I learned Spanish, came home, and I started working in like trucking and automotive industry while I was trying to go to school. Um, Ended up going there for longer than I would have liked, or working there for longer than I would have liked, partially because COVID did hit, and so we had
Right.
that weird period. And I don't learn well over camera or calls or anything. I've never been able to do like very well in online classes. So
Mhm,
during
mhm.
that time frame, I also didn't really want to get my nose swabbed every day, so I just decided to take a break from school for a minute. So I put
Don't
everything on
blame
hold
you.
for about a year and a half. Yeah, I was not up for that challenge. I had it done enough. So I dropped that, but in the mix of all that, I also kind of had um, I just had this epiphany and this realization that during COVID, it almost to me felt like the entire medical community that I respected and wanted to be a part of so badly, all of a sudden just became a bunch of people that didn't have any idea that what was going on.
Hey,
Uh,
right.
and from the perspective of somebody who is trying to become a medical professional, and we know that these individuals have a lot of schooling, they typically have a lot of training, things like that. All of a sudden it just was like nobody had the answers, nobody had any idea what was going on. And
Mm-hmm.
we're taking these precautions to such extreme heights that it was all of a sudden treating people really poorly.
Right.
uh, and I didn't feel good about that, because for
Mm,
me, the whole reason of wanting to be in the medical community was to help people and to make
right.
people's lives better.
Right.
Uh, so that really kind of messed me up. So for a
Yeah.
while, I didn't really know what I was going to do. I stopped going to school. I was pretty far along. And throughout this time, I had been kind of getting into um, I don't know, I guess you could call it coaching. I didn't have a coach directly, but I paid a lot of attention to um, like podcasts and learning. And I was doing a lot of
Mhm,
reading and a
mhm.
lot of podcasts, things with, Andy Frisella and
Yeah.
um, Ed Milet and, Gary Vaynerchuk, a lot of these guys. And I was just learning as much as I possibly could. And I was trying to apply it to, some of my own stuff, and thought maybe I would start my own businesses. And so I had a bunch of ideas, several different things come up. Um, and we did start a business. Me and my wife started a small import export business in Mexico, and
Mm.
we've kind of been babying that for about 5 years, and
Oh, that's
it's
neat.
doing its little thing. Yeah, and it's exciting, and we love it. And it's kind of we kind of see it as being our like Mona Lisa, so to speak, the big thing that we do throughout our life, that we want
Yeah.
the company to be this big grandiose thing that kind of involves a lot of people. And the main point of it is we really want to be able to pay people a worthwhile salary that they can live their lives on.
Yeah.
So that's kind of the thing that we've got there. But in the meantime, I also kind of just felt like it was hard for me, because I didn't have enough way to go to Mexico during COVID. Obviously, had a
Right.
lot of restrictions. So my business partners, excuse me, were kind of communicating back and forth, via phone and Skype calls, stuff like that. And we were trying to get done what we could without me being there. And um, kind of controversially as well, I just still kind of felt like I was missing out on something that I,
Right.
didn't really have enough to do with that company. And so
Right.
it wasn't really making me feel busy or fulfilled. And so I started actually investing in some coaching. I joined the Lions Den and I went to Lions Den Live about 4 months, 5 months after I had joined the Lions Den, and I hadn't really done a whole lot with it up to that point. I kind of just floated in and out of the app a little bit, and then I finally went to Lions Den Live. And just a few weeks before Lions Den Live, I had met my very first in-person um, individual that was also in the den. His name is Jason Moore. He's a really good guy. And funny enough, he actually
Mhm.
brought his Jeep into the dealership that I was working at the time to get fixed. And I was wearing my Lions Not Sheep wristband. And he says, "Oh, you like Lions Not Sheep?" And I said, "Yeah, I also do coaching group, from the guy." And he goes, "Oh, you're in the den." And I'm like, "Oh, that's funny." And, this guy had a, Florida address and stuff. And he starts talking to me about it. And he's like, "Yeah, I've been in the den for a while." And so he invited me to go Lions Den Live with him. And I actually met him and his family there, and I got to sit with them, which was awesome because as soon as they saw me, they pulled me over, they had a seat for me and everything. And I felt so welcomed into a group of people that I
Yes.
had no idea who it was, and I
Yes.
finally felt like everybody's doing their own thing, but these are a bunch of people that are like, we get it. We get that it's tough, and, we get all these challenges. And he
Right.
was so cool and so encouraging and so welcoming. So after that, I got really dove into the coaching side of things to try and learn as much as I could about myself. And last October, my wife and I went to our very first fly-in together. They did a couples fly-in, and I
Mhm.
thought, well, this would be cool to go to. And
Yeah.
this is the very first one that you and Daniel attended together,
I
which was
know.
awesome.
It's so crazy. Like when I met, like when we hugged on Friday, like, and I know like you guys have joined our relationship coaching group too with Scott and Ann,
Yeah,
and I hugged her, and then I was like, wait a minute. I knew you before I knew you that you were Jake's wife. You know what I mean?
yeah,
Because we really connected on the Women's Day, and like we just were like sisters from another mister, you know what I mean? And so like, and that was the first event that Daniel and I met at. So it was
right.
just it was a very cool experience. And it's a really cool experience because you
Oh
did it
yeah,
together, right?
yeah. It was rad, and
Yeah,
just like you're saying, I really am so glad that we went to that one specifically as our first one.
right.
She's not really one to go out in public and be around a whole lot of people. She's really, reserved, and she also isn't. I mean, she agrees and she understands a lot of the coaching stuff, but she isn't necessarily someone that loves to kind of put themselves out for criticism, I guess, like direct criticism. Um, and so it was good to go to that, because that first Women's Day, she came back and she's like, there's some freaking awesome people in there. And there was, out of all of them, there was 3 or 4 ladies specifically that she connected with, and you were one of them.
Hmm.
She spent a whole bunch of time talking to Kayla. She spent a whole
Yep.
bunch of time talking to there's another gal that lives out here in Saratoga. I can't remember her name now, but and she just loved it. And she's like, I'm so glad that I went. And then we went that next day, and it was so funny too, because they had all those inside jokes that you guys all had from the day before. And like all of us guys and Sean were like, what is going on? And it's not like there was only
Uh-huh.
2 or 3 couples. I mean, there was 18 couples or something
There's a
like that with
lot.
that one.
Yeah.
And it was
Yeah.
wild. So it was so cool to see that, and have that be our first one, because when I had my realizations of what I wanted, and a lot of stuff came to me as far as how I had been feeling and things I'd never thought of before, she was having the exact same thing and her own stuff. And so it was cool to
Wow.
be able to line those up. So
Yeah.
yeah, we
That's an
felt
amazing,
really good
amazing.
after.
Yeah.
It was
I mean, it was an amazing event. And it was just, like you said, it was amazing to see how many couples were there. And like, I mean, I don't even know if Saxony knew how powerful that was going to be, but like, I mean,
yeah,
I knew it like I literally left a past of like a part of me in the past after that event. And all those women, I was like, we were just family immediately. And the next day it was family immediately. And that's what I have loved. People can talk as much shit as they want to about Lions Not
right.
Sheep, Lions Den, and Sean Whalen. Like, you can F off, you know what I mean? Because if you don't know, you're going to criticize and you're going to like be judgmental or even be jealous. But where it comes from is yourself, because you
Yeah,
know your self-worth. And when you get around these types of people, you're like, damn, there's so much more. There's so much more I can learn. There's so much more love behind all these masterminds, not just Sean Whalen or, and Saxony themselves, but, there's such a power of what, people are creating. And now here you are creating that too,
sure.
from, getting so sidetracked from, becoming a nurse and being in the medical field, like that shit was crazy. It was hard.
Yeah.
My best friend, she's a physical therapist, but she was on the floor every single day. I've never seen her break down so many times in my life. And then they were
Yeah.
treated like crap. And then all these things of, it's just like, and I've always thought of that. So I've been doing hair for 20 years. In Ventura, I had like 80% of my clientele were nurses because the
Sure.
nurses were so big. And you constantly heard this drama of like drama in HR, drama with people working together, like, and just pushing away. It's just like my dad was pushed away out of the hospital because he didn't have health insurance and then died at home, stuff like that.
Yeah.
And it's like, what has happened? This is going down the rabbit hole. I know I'm going down the rabbit hole a little bit,
It's
but
all right.
it's like, what has happened? You know what I mean? Like how many hands and like chains as the pharmaceutical companies wrap their twisted thoughts and what they believe
Yeah.
around these nurses and doctors, because it's not how it used to be anymore. And it's sad. And I know there's people going into the medical field now that really want to change that. And like, God save them. God help
Yeah.
them, because I mean, it's really, really tragic, but in all of that, you found another light to be doing what you're doing today
Yeah.
and having a company with your wife, which is so amazing. It brings you together. It just brings all these things, and you made something out of nothing,
Right. Yeah.
you know?
Yeah. The two things that really clicked for me, I don't think it was at October when I originally heard this, but um, when I went to the first fly-in October, the question was kind of posed on like, what do I want? But it was posed in the matter of like, you need to be able to distill this down to one sentence. If you were truly going to tell somebody what you want, could you say it in one sentence? Right. And
Right.
that had been asked so many times, and I've been to so many fly-ins now. And I've even talked to some of my, some of the people that I coach, and I've asked them the same question, and they're like, they always try to complicate it. And, for a while I thought, I could explain it, but then they were like run on sentences and all this stuff. And so a couple months went by, 2 or 3 months, and it was like my third month, honestly, thinking about that and hearing that question continually get asked over and over again. And one time Sean actually said, the thing that I decided to do instead of, building a business that could support my family was I just truly built my business, around my family. And if it wasn't going to work with my family, or if I wasn't going to be able to do the things I wanted with my family, or my family wasn't going to be able to be involved the way I wanted them to, then I just don't do it. I don't invest in it. I don't buy into it, whatever that might be now. And that kind of registered for me at the same time that I was able to like distill everything down what I wanted. And it came out truly as like, I want to write my own story. And for me, that registered in the aspect of 1,000 different things. On the one hand, the medical community, they're amazing. They help people. They do everything that they can. But now, just like you said, these doctors and nurses and everybody, I mean, even the doctors that we consider to be highly educated, kind of the top of the pole, they're so controlled by the hospitals. They're literally owned.
Right.
And it came down to, the instances that we saw over the last 3 years where they couldn't do what they wanted. They had to do what they were told. I grew up on a farm, like I said, with a really amazing legacy. And honestly, no, like I have zero disrespect or zero offense to anybody that has come before me, but I had realized that like I had not done very much on my own merit because of my last name. My last name is attached to so much from so many people that know my family that I can't go a couple weeks even, without running into a complete and total stranger who knows my family because of my last name.
Wow.
And I've been like that my entire life. And my wife will tell you that it's, it happens to her now that she's been married. People run into her and they start, grilling into her about being a Dansie. And I had just, registered, that's what I want. I want to be able to say that everything I have chosen to do, that I've built, everything like that has all been because I decided to do it, not because I had an upper hand doing it, because I had, the name and somebody had respect for it, or even because I was nudged into it. I just wanted to do what I wanted to do. And that was
That's
huge for
beautiful.
me. So that's kind of where the decision to do Axiom was. And I wanted to be able to help my friends do the same thing. And for me, that plays into being truly free. If you want to do exactly what you want to
Mhm,
do, that's part
mhm.
of it.
Right,
Feeling supported by individuals who understand that idea, even though they may not agree with your method, that it is
right,
your method.
right,
Um, and that to me is utterly more important than anybody who's gonna, continue to support decisions that, I would have made that would have prevented me from becoming my, 100% best,
right,
whether or not I was comfortable or not. So
right. I think what's
yeah.
also truly beautiful about that is, especially when you grow up in the same town and you stay there, you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
and there's nothing wrong with that, but it's harder to transition into somebody that you want to become. And I mean that
Right.
because, when I was in Ventura, for all those years, I felt stuck, but I didn't know why. But I felt stuck because I was doing the same thing and I didn't even know it. You know what I mean? It was just like clockwork that I would do this, hang out with these friends, like be around these people. I didn't understand that I wasn't putting myself around even higher people that are going places. And not to say that
Right.
my friends aren't, like they are now like kind of coming out of their shell. Like a couple of them are moving out of state and just, I feel like when you move somewhere, you kind of have to like restart yourself and find out who you are because you don't
Sure.
have this posse around you. And so when you do that in the same area roughly, and your ability to choose who you want to be no matter what's going on, no matter the people that you see every day, that is really hardcore. Like that is
Yeah.
super cool. Like I have mad respect for that because to see that is one thing, to take action is another. And I personally would have never taken action on something like this and unless I moved and then dated a wrong person one more time. And I was like,
Sure.
I need to invest in myself. I've never done that before. And I wouldn't even thought of that if I was still stuck in the same place. I mean, who knows?
Yeah. Oh
Who
yeah.
knows? But I think that's something that you should be really proud of. And like, as well as Danielle, like being really proud of, like, you know what, this is who we are. We don't have to be defined by our past or our last name. It is our last name. We're proud of it, but this is who I am. And
Yeah.
so, and that is a gift that you get to teach people because there's a lot of people that are stuck in those patterns because they don't know,
Sure. Yeah.
you
Yeah.
know?
And it's wild. Like in your, like in your situation specifically, there's so many people that I think do feel trapped on a literal geographical level. They just feel
Mhm,
stuck wherever they're at. And that's what was so interesting to me when I was kind of going through that process is, we haven't chosen to move. I still live in the same town I grew up in and everything, but
mhm,
I've chosen to go this route with things and knowing the way that I grew up and how my friends knew where I came from and everything like that. It's interesting now as an adult because this conversation is something that I have to some point, and probably quite frequently have with people who knew exactly who I was and everything growing up and who my family
mhm,
was. And so it's almost kind of weird, but
mm,
like what you did is virtually the same thing,
mhm.
but it's difficult on a different level and it's simpler on another level because on the one
Right.
hand,
Yeah,
like
yeah,
to explain to somebody, I only feel like I'm going to change if I literally uproot my life physically and move however many hundreds of miles away. There are people that just think that's insane. And a lot of, I mean, I even know several friends of mine that have moved pretty far from friends, family, everything to reset. And I'm just like, man, that is crazy. That is
mhm,
a lot. But it's
mhm.
almost like ripping off the band-aid, so to speak, because just
Yes.
like you said, you're free. You could do whatever you want. No one knows you. You have no premise. You have no
Mhm.
history, and you're restart from scratch. What do you want to do?
Right,
And one
right.
of my best friends did that, and I always kind of never truly understood it 100%. But now that we're both adults, and he lives where he lives still several hours away from me, I get it now because he did
Yeah,
exactly that. He's happy. He's got his thing, and that's so cool to see because that was the exact same thing that happened, with my family. my great grandfather and my great great grandfather came from England. He did emigrate with with the LDS Church and the pioneers, and he
Yeah.
left his entire family. Literally left his entire family in England. He lost half of his kids when they were crossing the plains. They all passed away, and he lost his wife
Wow.
and came all the
Wow.
way to Utah, still just on the premise that he was going to do what he thought he needed to do, what was right, and what what was for him. His parents, he never saw his parents again, never heard from them ever again. And so I
Wow.
think about that, and they're two totally different like levels, but I mean, they're both so difficult in their own way to,
Right.
on the other hand, stay in your same place. And I don't
Mhm.
have nearly the story that some folks have, but for example,
Right.
like if you were to have served time in prison, or been done drugs or had any of these things, and you build this reputation and you decide to stay within your community and change that, I mean, that itself has its own challenges.
Right.
So I want to be able to help as many people figure that out and have that communication. And if that means they move into another area that's better for them, and ultimately they end up exactly where they want to be and where they need to be,
Right.
just like you, it took you two moves, but you're around a ton of people that, that care
Yeah.
about you and that are close to you. You're with somebody that, is absolutely crazy about you. And like that to me is so rad to just think that whole concept of this really sucks up front, but I
Yeah.
truly don't know what I'm going to get on the back end. And then to see people actually get anything and everything that they wanted because they made that sacrifice is so
Right.
cool.
Yeah, it's just like Ed Milet says, like be the one. Like, how are you going to be the
Absolutely.
one that changes your whole family history into something super positive, And
Absolutely.
it does take sometimes to move out of state. It does take someone, sometimes because I was, trying to be there for everybody except
Yeah.
myself, everybody in my friend circle and everybody in my family circle. And there was one of my friends that we actually have had a really hard time with our friendship because they're used to me just dropping the ball and like, okay, let's
Yeah.
do that, And it wasn't until one of my best friends, they sat down just to have coffee and, they asked about me and she's like, look, Brittany is here. You have to understand that she is here now and she's doing what she wants to do. She's on the journey of becoming a free woman, and that takes a lot of work and you change. She's still the same person, but she's strong. She's independent, she's doing all these things. And when I saw my friend again, she was just like, you know what, Brittany, I'm so proud of you. Like, I'm so
Yeah.
proud of what you're doing. And I support everything you're doing. And I was like shocked that she said that, but I needed
Yeah.
that. And I was like, that's great because that, therefore I still can have her in my life as a friend because that's another thing when you step out of your comfortable zone, you step out and be the one, you step out onto that that tall diving board and you're looking down, you're freaking out, you're scared, you're like, there's no
Right.
way I'm going to jump. But when you have to have faith in yourself and jump and you will change. And so, your circle of friends might change because of that. Your family
Yeah.
might change because of that. They might not
Right.
support you. There's some family members that don't support me in my podcast. And you know what? It's okay. I talked
Yeah.
about that on Friday. It's okay. Like
Yeah.
maybe someday they will see where I'm going, be like, okay, maybe she is doing something that like I'm interested in. And like,
Sure.
really being honest with herself and not being afraid to tell the truth. And I feel that, a lot of people are just afraid to tell the truth. They're afraid to like step on to something that they've never stepped onto or learn something they've never learned before. And that is the whole, like the most of the reason for so many people that they don't do anything and they stay
Oh
stuck.
yeah.
And, when I go back home, you can tell the people that have done something like you in the same town and have been the one. And you can also tell with the people that like are literally stuck in the same thing over
Yeah.
and over and over, like a merry-go-round. And you're just like, dang, like, but they don't know.
Right.
That's the
Right.
crazy part. They don't know.
They've never had any indication that they're not at their potential. And I
Right.
think that's what's wild too is, when we talk about people, being free or any of this stuff, I mean, it really comes down to it's just like public speaking. It's just like
Mhm.
opening a podcast. It is
Mhm.
any of these things that you're willing to take yourself authentically and put it out in the world for
Mhm.
people to criticize and judge.
Right.
But you're doing it because you want to get better. You're doing it because
Mhm.
you no longer feel like you have anything to hide. You're
Right.
doing it because you want to become that next level. And it's so interesting to me that so many of those things are simply things like leaving a good a good paying job to go pursue what you actually enjoy, what makes you happy, leaving the individual that you're with, because as comfortable as you are with them, they are going to remain in this spot, and you are feeling so drawn to something else, and you guys will never be able to end up in the same spot, even though you
Right.
may care for each other and have respect for each other, just like you said,
Totally.
whether that's friends, family members, or even partners. And
Right.
there's so many of these things that I just see so many individuals. I mean, we're talking billions of people on this planet, and there's so many people that are just literally in that rat race. And it takes, this much difference to honestly set yourself apart. I
Right.
mentioned on Friday when I was talking that I'm just a guy. I just have a credit card. I called the right dude. He set these events up. I show up, I talk to a few other folks, people show up, and that is what it is. I mean, and that's truly in a nutshell all it takes to get live events going. And it was so funny to me that once I'd done the first one, especially now after the second one, I'm like, man, this is cheesy. They're so easy. It's not simple by any means at all. I mean, we saw that with our streaming issues and everything else.
Right.
Like, it's so easy. You want to have an event, you just got to call the right guy and offer him a credit.
Right.
You want to freaking do a podcast, like, and that's the whole thing too. Like, podcasting is so easy. It's not simple at all. There's plenty that goes into it, but
Right.
it's truly just like you can record straight from your phone or from your laptop with a pair of
Totally.
cheap headphones. But
Yep.
how many people have stuff to share that need to take this big of a step in order to do that and help themselves feel more free, and they just don't. And it's
Right.
simple. Nobody else is holding them back or stopping
Right.
them.
Right. Right. And that also goes to show like who's in your inner circle, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Who's like also showing you that, it's just like even if you gave someone, Sean Whalen's book, it's this big, you know what I mean? It's like, how about instead of reading this, like try reading this. Instead of watching this, watch this. Instead of listening
Yeah.
to this, listen to this. Just like a 1 degree shift, can change your life forever by one sentence, that you hear
Yeah,
or
absolutely.
read. And, it's like you just think about, how people are not seeing this or how they're being brainwashed by, things that are on television, in the news, on social media and stuff like that. And it's like, how do you get out of that programming that you're
Yeah.
everything that you're used to around you? And I honestly feel that, I don't care what you believe in, you know what I mean? Not you specifically, Jake, but just the
Yeah.
audience. Like, I really feel that for me, really, really trusting my life with God, I was able to see things differently or hear things
Absolutely.
differently. And it starts with that. I feel like when, that faith really came into play, like 100%, not just 95% being spiritual, which is still amazing, but just really letting go. And I think that it comes down to this. If you don't like something about yourself, why do you stay in that position?
Yeah,
Why do you
absolutely.
choose that?
Absolutely. And I
You
think to
know,
your point too, God doesn't want us to be stuck with that stuff. He
no.
doesn't want us to be stuck in misery or with basic things. He wants us to have everything that we can possibly get. But it's just like you're saying, whether it's Sean Whalen's book, or even I thought I had a copy here, but like As a Man Thinketh is the same way.
Oh
That's
yeah,
80 pages. It's the smallest book ever. And yet how many people can read it? I give that thing out like candy, and I ask people
totally.
later if they've read it, and so few people read it. I mean, you can read it in 2 hours.
Yep.
And how do you spend your time? Are you going out partying? Are you going out drinking? Are you just, whatever that may be? Or is it even like we went to, over the weekend together, the big group of us, we went to a party, so to speak,
Yeah.
but it had it had a point, it had a plan. We say it had a plan. It didn't go according to plan, but there was people there. It had like a networking aspect to it. There was actual
Right.
goals that were part of that, and
Right.
it's not saying that you can't go to those things and have fun, or that you even need to go to every event, that's $10,000 a ticket or whatever it is, but there's
Right.
plenty that are free. There's plenty that
Right.
are cheap. And if you're spending your time doing that, a lot of the stuff that you're going to benefit from isn't even having to have some expert skill set or having to spend a whole bunch of money in order to get here. It's just go to this place, talk to this person, make a relationship with
Yeah.
them, and you might end up talking on stage. You might end up doing podcast interviews, whatever that is. You have no
Mhm.
idea, but we
You
don't
don't.
do it. And it's so simple, and we don't do it.
Right. 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 And that's the thing. It's like we've been, taught not to do those things. Like,
Yeah.
stay in your own bubble. Don't talk about yourself. Just be respectful and just, go to work and go home and like be, have kids and all these things. And, of course, like that's literally what I thought growing up. I didn't
Right.
know any better. And
Exactly.
it took me a long time to know that I had to do more soul searching for myself and learn that I do have a choice. And that's
Yeah.
what people don't understand, is that they don't understand that they get to have a choice in what they say and do and who they're going to become. And
Absolutely.
it's like and that's why we and yourself and other people have to shine our light as bright as we can so people cannot not see us. And that's
Yeah.
exactly what Sean Whalen has done, because most people know who Sean Whalen is. I mean, I had a
Yeah.
client in my chair and she was a nurse, and we talked about some really heavy stuff because, I can talk very openly and honestly very fast with somebody because of what I
Yeah.
do. And if I feel that energy from the other person, I'm going to start like having deep conversations because I'm very fascinated by
Yeah.
what people see, what they hear, what they learn, what they want to see. And she was like, I can't stand Sean Whalen. I really hate that guy. And I was like, that's okay. I was like, why? And she's like, well, I think that with everything he said about, COVID during 2020, he, led people to die. And I was like, okay,
Okay.
I think you can, put somebody on a pedestal like that. Like he's the reason why some people died, you know what
Sure.
I mean? Like,
Yeah.
but at the same time, I was like, look, you cannot, if you're going to believe what somebody says, like if you're going to believe 100% of what somebody says, you're not believing in yourself.
Yeah.
Like you have to have your own opinion about something. You can look to somebody, you can listen to somebody, but like you have to have your own opinion always. And you have to think for yourself. And that's
Yeah.
what I told her. I was like, I mean, it's absolutely okay, right? He's changed my life. Like he's changed my life for so many reasons, but so many other people have because of what
Sure.
I accepted to. But I don't agree with everything he says. I don't
Yeah.
agree with a lot of people, you know what I mean, with everything that they say. Like I don't even agree with myself sometimes with everything that I think.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's
That
okay.
makes it human. That's what makes us human,
Yeah,
you know?
100%. And I think that's what's important about it is there's so many. I just liken it, like you said, it's hard to put people on any sort of pedestal really at all because you lose your freedom right off the bat.
Yeah,
And I have such a
100%.
hard time. It really doesn't matter what the subject is when people do put pedestals on that for good or for bad, because
Hmm.
it's just like saying, Barack Obama is responsible for all these issues or Trump is responsible for all these
Right,
issues. You're putting these guys so high up on that pedestal that it,
right,
it doesn't make sense. And it doesn't matter who it is
right.
or what side of the aisle you're on. And, controversially, one of the things that I am very passionate about is when I talk to people and when I have, conversations with people, I try to be as respectful as possible, because the thing that has always hit me is I have been treated like absolute garbage by people who were on the same level as me, whether that's education, experience,
Sure.
money, how much money I'm making, anything like that. I've been treated like absolute garbage by somebody who's supposedly my peer.
Right.
Yet, as I've been trying to grow, and especially even when I was younger, I've spent time with people like Dan Fleischman, like you mentioned, like Dan Fleischman, Dan Young, Sean Whalen, Andy Frisella, and any take your pick of any of these people who are worth 100 times what I'm worth. And it's not that the money's the most important part, but
Hmm.
for example, I remember my very first experience with Andy Frisella. I watched him speak for a couple hours and I walked up and I just said to myself, the only thing that I really care about is I just want to tell Andy Frisella that my goal is to have him speak on my stage or to be on stage speaking with him by the time I turned 30. And this was a couple years ago now. It's been about 3.5 years. And he looked me straight in the eyes. He looked me up and down and he says, "You'll do it." And that was the only thing he said. And I shook his hand and I went to leave. I went to walk off. And he grabbed me and he says, "Don't you want to take a picture?" And I said, "I don't." Why? Like that for me was the most important aspect of that entire interaction.
Ooh,
Somebody who was 100 times
ooh,
more valuable than me on a monetary level and who, like you said, a lot of people would put on a pedestal for success or any of things, looked at me and genuinely with like true human nature had care, had respect, and had belief in somebody that they didn't even know. So now when I have interactions with everybody, I just think, you know what, I'm sorry you're having a tough time, man, but nobody is better than me, including somebody who is worth more than me, hypothetically, based on societal norms in every way, shape, or form. And that guy treated me amazing, treated me like I was good friends. And
yeah,
that to me has always blown my mind now. So it is unfortunate that people get stuck in those holes and they get stuck in those loops, thinking that
right.
people are lucky or people, this, that, or
Oh
whatever. And
man,
they really could be taking that energy to improve where they're ending up and they can
right,
improve their lives. But it's hard to flip that switch. It's hard to flip the mindset for sure.
right, right. But that's where it starts, is the mindset,
Yeah.
right? It starts with that mindset and then taking the momentum with that and just being true to yourself and not,
Yeah.
you know, judging yourself compared to somebody else's success. It
Exactly.
doesn't happen overnight. And that's
Exactly.
why we build these things and, do free events. And, if I ever do a free event or I know someone's going to do an event or something, I will come to you because you're my friend, right?
Yeah.
You're
Right.
starting it out. And that's how this table gets built with all of us to push the envelope on each other. So it's really also about looking at the group of friends that you have around yourself. Are they providing what you need to get to the next level? And if they're not, go somewhere else. And that's the thing, like with all these people that are higher than us, like Andy Frisella and Dan Fleischman and Sean Whalen. Then once you get to into their table or in their circle, it might not be their inner circle, but then it takes you to the next level of like, are you going to ask them the question? Like, are
Yeah.
you going to ask them to be on your podcast, on your stage? And that's something really scary. Of course, I would love to have Sean on my podcast someday, but I'm so fucking scared. Like I feel like I just need a little bit more, but honestly, I probably don't. You know what I mean? Um, but at the same time, those are goals of mine, or
Sure.
speak on stage next to him, just like you were saying. And when you ask those questions, when they're so, and these are the type of people that you have to understand are so humble. Like you can't just, blow all your money on somebody that's not humble.
Yeah.
And sometimes that's very, very hard to see through the screen. You know what I mean? Or,
Right.
through an event. Like, and that's why, when you have God on your back, you're able to see the curtain open and to really see who they are, including yourself. Because if you're humble and you're hungry, you are going to attract humble and hungry. I mean, I tell my siblings this like all the time: be
Yeah.
humble, be hungry, because once that ego takes over and you're just ego and hungry, you're not going to be successful. And you see those
Right.
people fail all the time,
Right.
and so it's something to constantly remember. I mean, yeah, like I'm not there yet, right? I don't have multi-millions of dollars. Like, I hope I'm still like this person when I have that, you know what I mean? Because,
Sure.
what I had a nice conversation with Amber Castaneda. She's like, girl, it is about money. And I'm like, what do you mean? I've always worked like saying that I love doing hair because I'm so passionate about it. The money will come, the money will be
Yeah.
there. She's like, put your money first because you're passionate, because the more money you make, the more you can help people, the more events, the bigger the events, the bigger the
Absolutely.
charity. And I was like, oh my gosh, so like I'm definitely after that. And that's what, you had the whole event last Friday is about freedom. What does
Yeah.
freedom look like to you? What does it taste like? What does it smell like? What is financial freedom look like to you? And, freedom to love and freedom to do whatever you want to do. People don't
Yeah.
even ask themselves those questions.
No, they don't. And there's people that are in true survival mode for themselves or for their family who they don't even think that they have the time or to even have the option to ask
Mhm.
themselves that question,
Right.
and for me, like when I think about all these folks that we've talked about, the thing that is really astounding that also stands out to even just like the relationship that you and I have and a lot of our friends is that as people come up and as people, step into new roles and new levels, your good friends are going to hold you to that. And
Yeah.
I mean, they're going to
Yeah.
force you to do it, and they're going to a lot of times give you shit for lack of a better term
And
if
they
if
should.
you don't, and they should, because that's the thing. When you look at people that are doing these things and have the success that they have, which does include money, they can help so many more people.
Mhm.
Before I got any sort of coaching and we started our business in Mexico and started thinking about that, the thing that came out of my mind, I was asked once a long time ago when I first told somebody I wanted to be a business owner. And this was a couple years before we had started our Mexico business. Somebody asked me, why would you ever want the stress of having to deal with like employees and pay employees and having, to have all that responsibility and do those things? Why would you want that stress? And my answer was genuinely like, I like the aspect of stress of it is my responsibility and also blessing to be able to help provide for somebody's family, to help them do better. Right. And so when we started my Mexico business, unilaterally across all the decisions we had made, myself, my wife, my business partners, the main thing was we wanted people in the specific town that we were starting with to be the first beneficiaries. And then from that, it was we want people to actually have a job that they can do year round because it's so temporal right now with the harvests. And we want people to get paid enough that they don't have to leave their family for months to go to another
Right.
area to do that
Right.
job or
Right.
vice versa, whatever that may be. And like I said, these are people who truly have never had that question even prompted in their mind because they feel like they can't. They were raised and put into an environment that to them it is A plus B equals survival.
Right.
And so if I can go out of my way to be able to give back to people, which is going to cost a lot of money, and give them even a small opportunity to be able to start that thought
Right.
process, then that's going to be way more, gratifying for me
Right.
than anything else I ever could have done will be.
Absolutely. And what also came to mind, another person that came to mind was Ryan Stewman. He
Yeah.
is one of those guys that changed how businesses are run, like asking your employees a different way to look at your life, to
Right.
understand what you want, who you are, and what you can achieve as an individual while working under him at the same time. Like you hear that all the time. You hear that when he speaks, you're like, wow, like he changed the game as a business owner with
Yeah.
employees, and everybody can too. Like my uncle, he's been in the mechanic world for I think 35, 40 years.
Yeah.
And he's had his own business for, I'm gonna blow it right now. Like Cindy, I know my aunt's probably listening to this and she's but like a handful of years. I'm just gonna say a handful of years. And my uncle is very, very successful
Yeah.
because of his personality, and he truly cares about his employees, and he truly cares about asking the right questions. And, you know, in 2020, he bought the freaking building that he works out of. Like, I mean,
Yeah.
the guy is a mastermind, but you know, it's hard to like get the information of how he does it because he just does it, you know.
Yeah.
Um, but it's people like that that are like changing the game, and I'm very lucky to that I have someone as a family member seeing that. I don't know how, but I get to see that. And but at the same time, if when he's grinding like that, he gets to see how I am grinding like that. And we
Yeah.
get to have this beautiful relationship. And so is, you know, with my aunt involved in that, that we call ourselves the Three Musketeers, you know, when I was in Colorado, like really, we were really kind of pushing each other along the way and we didn't even
Yeah.
realize it. But that is being different in the business world as a person, as you know, the boss, because
Yeah.
we don't have to be like, you have to do it this way and blah, 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 blah. You know, like I'm working for somebody right now. You know, I haven't worked, you know, for somebody in 14 years. I have worked for myself. So it's a little different and I'm getting used
Sure.
to that. I'm getting very, you know, kind of humbled of like, oh yeah, I gotta check in, but it's okay. You know what I mean? Like I'm all about like seeing what these experiences are because you know Dallin and Kristen who own House of Flint where I work now, they run their business really really beautifully and filled with love. And so I'm at least, you know, I get to learn for now like what I'm doing as a hairdresser and working for really creative people. So you know that's kind of going outside of what we're talking about, but at the same time, you know, I get to choose to be in this second part of my career after, you know, being
Yeah.
20 years, having who knows, maybe another 10 or 20 years doing hair, you know, under something completely different than I'm not used to. Um,
Sure.
and that was cool. Like I invited them to come to the event on Saturday and they came, you know what I mean? It wasn't, the whole thing wasn't all that, you know, we thought it was going to be, but it was still something like to come together to network. And
Right.
that's what it's all about. And you never know what you're going to expect. And that's the
Right.
point. So,
Exactly.
you
Exactly.
know,
I
and
think so many people have a hard time. They don't really, I mean, so many people don't have a relationship with their, so to speak, boss or even their
right,
coworkers, right? Most people don't do that stuff outside of work, kind of a thing. But
right.
I think the most distilled down like idea there is that leaders, good leaders create
There you go.
leaders.
There
And
you
it's
go.
simple, you know,
There
and
you go.
that's the aspect is if you are trying to make yourself replaceable, if you're trying to make yourself obsolete by leading those in your charge in a manner that they grow so rapidly that they can literally replace you, then you've done your job. Because
Yep.
whether they stay with your company and become just absolute powerhouses that make themselves very successful and in turn make you very successful, or they leave and do their own thing, you have now created a spirit that is literally so powerful and
Boom.
so free and of themselves that they can actually continue to carry that on to other individuals now. And you'll always have that relationship, you'll always have that experience, and that's going to spread way farther than, you know, like you were saying, just being a typical manager who's, you know, telling you got to do it one way or another, and you might end up a couple extra bucks in the black this year. So
Hmm. That is really well said, Jake. I hope you guys all wrote that down. That is like a really big gold nugget about
that's my one for the month.
which, no, you've actually said a lot of gold nuggets in here, but being a leader, like being a true leader, is really guiding other people to lead,
Yeah.
you know, so they
Yeah.
can keep leading and sharing and leading other people where they get to lead. And it's just this ripple effect. And that's what we want to do. Like, you know, 100 years from now, who knows if people will remember our names, but they'll remember, you know, 50 years ago, the other person that they led for those people to lead.
Absolutely.
And it just kind of trickles down, like you're talking about your grandfather or grandparent about how
Yeah.
he got to America, you know, like being being the one that is going to serve under the light and be the best leader that they can be for others to be the best leader that they can be. And I think that's what it really comes down to, because that comes from love and passion and really wanting to see people win. And that is what
Absolutely.
people don't see, like with Sean Whalen. You know what I mean? Like, for example, And it's to really going back to being humble, like humbling yourself, learning to listen and sit back and follow what works to truly get to the ultimate success and love for yourself.
Yeah.
Share that. It's, we don't want to just take it for just ourselves. Like, we want to share that. And that's why you're seeing, like, some people are like, oh my God, there's all these coaches everywhere, and life coaches and things like this. Yes,
Yeah.
bring it. I mean, you're gonna figure out who are fake and who are real quick.
And it's fast. It is so
It's so
fast.
fast.
Just like you're saying, I think the biggest thing is so many of these people that are in those spaces now. I think that they put off that aura sometimes, that people think that they're a-holes or whatever else,
Right.
because they don't understand that those individuals can so quickly look at somebody and know whether or not what they're wanting to do is purely for them, or if there's going to be a whole lot of charity involved in that. And I think that's something that, some people have a really fine sense to. Some people grow that and come into that as they learn, and other people have virtually no sense at all. And I think that's what makes the huge difference. Is you look at some of these individuals and you watch them interact with people, and you know exactly who's trying to do something just for themselves or has selfish interest. And you have other individuals who you can just tell, it could be a simple ask of coming to speak on somebody's stage, and like, on a selfish level, I wanted to make sure that there wasn't, just going to be me talking. There was going to be some other people that showed up. But at the same time, like, I had this motive to make sure that, like, I got my friends to come and speak and give them an opportunity. And that's just really simple and just really dumbed down. But unless you have those interactions with people either frequently enough or actually in person, it's just hard to tell sometimes. Like you said, through the screen, it makes it really difficult.
Right. And that's why going to events in person is also just so amazing. Of course, like, all of our coaching is done online, but
Yeah.
when someone's just talking, depending on how they do it, like, you can really find the passion, hear the passion, and see it,
Yeah.
depending on who you're listening to. And that's, really what we all want to create, most of us.
Exactly.
And, I feel that once you understand, like, once, like, you dive in, like, I mean, first of all, let's talk about, Sean Whalen dropping the Lions Den to $47.
Yeah.
I was like, holy shit, that's so crazy. That is so crazy to me. And then I thought, well, there's going to be a lot of interesting people that come in there. There is. There's going to be, I bet you there's going to be some haters in there just because it's $47. But I also,
which is a huge waste of money just to be a troll, but I digress.
It will happen. But the coolest thing about it is that everyone who's been scared, $47 is not scary.
Yeah.
$47 is going to change your life. $47 to get into something that you've been eyeballing for a long time, and he's giving that opportunity to everybody. Like, that is so selfless.
Yeah.
And that's huge. It's an amazing leader. And, that's why I love him, and love all these other people. It's just like, that is so humble and hungry at the same time. So, we're here, we're on this journey, you guys. Like, we might not have it all yet, and we'll never have it all, because we're going to be constantly learning and growing and figuring out the new, changing the old, bringing in the new, bringing in something else that is scary and something else that is scary, being in the dark and being okay, being on the path alone for a little while. These are things that you're going to go through. I mean, it was not even last week that I told Daniel, I was like, why am I doing this podcast? I feel like I'm not helping anybody. I don't hear anything. And, Daniel has gotten so many people saying how much he's helped people already. And I'm just like, that is so freaking cool.
Yeah.
Then I was like, well, I'm not getting that. Am I doing something wrong? And, I was like, what are you doing? And that's natural. And I want you guys to know, out in the audience, this is going to happen. when you start building and building and building. Like you hear Ed Milet talk about this all the time. He constantly is like, what am I doing? Even now,
Yep, exactly.
even now. And that's okay. That means that you're on the right path
Yeah.
when you're freaked out. Like, even when I was moving here, I've never been so stressed out in my life because everything was going, I was so excited to be in Colorado and I built my dream clientele and I had my family, I'm like, what am I doing? Like,
Yeah.
but you meet the man of your dreams on a podcast, you're going to do whatever it takes to
That's right.
build that table. So don't
Even
be
if your friends
afraid.
have to bully you along the way to make it happen, that's okay.
I mean,
It's good
that's
bullying.
why I came to that flying. I was like, I don't know what to do. And everyone's like, what are you doing? Just freaking move here already. Like,
Yeah.
come on. And I was, and Scott Travis was like, would you move here if it wasn't for Daniel? And I said, nope. And that whole rest of the day, I'm like, why did I say that? But that's because it was a comfortable answer.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It was a comfortable thing to say. And I was like, well, of course, like there's a lot of potential out here because of the table I have out here.
Yeah.
Different. So, anyways, just don't be afraid to do anything that's holding you back from success. If something is going to add value to your life, this is the first thing I learned in the Lion's Den. It was the first call I ever heard. If something was going to add value into your life, do it. Just do it. That's how it took me 3 days to buy a ticket for Lion's Den Live last year because I was like, what? Like, that's so much money. But look what happened to me because of that, So just invest in yourself, you guys, and, become a leader of your life. That doesn't mean you have to be a leader in everybody else's life. Become a leader in your life first.
Yep.
Love the leader
Absolutely.
that you are and
Absolutely.
lead with success. Don't follow everybody else, listen to everybody else, learn from everybody else, and write your own story.
Absolutely.
And I think that's exactly what you're doing. So, to our audience out there, Jake, what are the top 3 things that you would tell somebody if they're really scared to start writing their own story?
Yeah. I mean, I did a short little kind of recap the other day, and this is really similar to our event, but I'll tell you that, first and foremost, every single person has worthwhile experiences. And there is somebody out there, I promise you, 7 billion people is a lot of people. And I don't think everybody realizes that there's somebody out there who is going to take value in your experiences and what you have to say. So know and take comfort that in whatever it is that you have to share, that there is value in it. I think the second thing as well is that no matter what you do, no matter how bad it scares you, if it scares you literally to death, if it's the worst thing you could possibly do ever, get up on that stage and speak in front of people, makes you want to pass out, then that means there's going to be that much more benefit for it on the back end. And you're going to be exponentially more blessed for stepping into the fire and coming out on the other side. And I think the last thing is don't be afraid to challenge other people around you, and don't be afraid to take those challenges on. If you have the right circle of friends, every challenge that they pose to you will be good for you. And if it is something that, like you said, adds value to your life in any way, shape, or form, then it cannot possibly be bad. And you have the obligation and responsibility as a friend, as a leader as well, to return that. And more often than not, that turns into acts of charity, of service, of anything else to, bless other people around you. And it's just going to continue to make you feel even more full, regardless of how, successful you may or may not be in the heat of the moment.
Drops, Mike. Damn.
There
You
you
guys
go.
better write that down. I'm going to go back and write that down. That is amazing. That's amazing advice. And it's that, and as simple as that, and that's the thing, like with fear, like it's so simple when
Yeah.
we actually do it. You're like, oh my God. How many of you out there listening right now have been wanting to do something for a long time, but you're scared, and then you finally do it and you're like, that was so easy.
Not bad. Right.
It's not that bad. You know what I'm
Right.
saying? It's like, go and do those things, because you're going to get old and like shriveling, maybe can't walk very good anymore. And like, I don't want you to regret that one thing that you could have done that was
Yeah.
scary, that what it's going to change your life. So just do it. Life is so short.
Absolutely.
That's what I'm the most afraid of now, is just like what Dan Fleischman says. I'm afraid of I'm going to
Running out
lose
of time.
out of time to help as many people as I can. And that is such a powerful
Absolutely.
statement that, has really just ingrained in my mind. And he's so right. But if we become leaders to help make leaders, then our legacy will still live on, no matter if they know our names or not.
Right.
They're going to be passing along that torch to continue to help others. And that's what we're here for, baby.
Absolutely.
So
Absolutely.
thank you so much for coming on, Jake. Like, you
Thank
freaking
you for
dropped
having
some
me, for sure.
bombs, like just amazing. And I'm glad, like Daniel and I have this wonderful relationship with you and your wife, and I just want that to continue. And it was funny, Dan was like, man, like us four, like I feel like we're going to be really powerful. Like us four should do a lot of things together. Like, you
Yeah.
and I and Daniel, just like, and then our partners that are going to come with that and help support that and make it bigger. I'm like, yeah.
Yeah. It's
Yeah.
so wild to see
Cool.
you just mesh with people that are on the same journey as you, and you guys all
Right.
just start pulling the same direction. It's just
Right.
great.
It's really cool. I mean, even like with Brandon and Kayla that came, they're like, we're building this table, you're a part of it. Like, we're building this table, and you're kind of seeing this table being built. And it's just, you're like, is this happening? This is so cool. Like, so you guys build your table, which means, if you guys don't know, it's your inner circle of the people that you trust the most to get you to somewhere that you don't believe that you can get to. They help you believe that you can get there, that that you can, and then you start believing in yourself to get there. Did I say that right? So
Yeah.
I'm like, did I say that right? So again, thank you so much. You
Thank
guys look
you.
out for the dates. The next Axiom event is in August, correct?
Yep. August 25th is the next arena night. And then
Arena.
December 16th is going to be our charity auction gala for Operation Underground Railroad. So if you guys are interested, please feel free to reach out. We would love to get as much participation at that event as possible, so that we can, help as many people as we can with that.
Right. And I'll put all that information down in the Dropbox below. Make sure to follow him, you guys, so you get to stay up on all these things. And if you think you can help, or you want to speak on stage, tell us what you're good at. Tell them what you're good
Absolutely.
at. Not just say, how can you help? Tell us how you can help if you want to be a part of this experience and grow it into something else that's bigger than you. So, again,
Absolutely.
you guys, lead your life with love and not fear, and we're all going to make this world a better place. So,
Hell yeah.
yay.
On Brittany.
Thanks, Jake. You guys have a great
Appreciate you.
Monday. See you
Take
next
care.
time.